If you can't have yourself, your mind and your emotions in control, you are somehow weak or deficient or lacking in something. And it is, only for the weak-hearted or the weak-minded that counseling and therapy is required. Now that, I think, is the biggest bummer.
So the third shift and the biggest shift I'm seeing, and I think it's pretty amazing. Not all organizations are totally there, and I don't think there are partners that they can actually tie up with who also know the whole answer to this. But it's something to do with can they look at well-being, which is mental and physical health, from a culture or strategy perspective?
The one thing all of us were dealing with the increasing amount of all the social media is that loneliness. We're all so busy working that the human connection was already going down the drain to some extent. And now I think the pandemic has only enhanced it. Everyone, thank you for taking this evening to join us. From AnitaB.org India, a warm welcome to all of you. Just a little bit about AnitaB.org India. We are a not-for-profit working to empower women in technology. Our vision is to have 50-50 gender equity in technology so that people who are making technology represent the communities they're creating it for. So since we have 50-50 men and women population, we want a similar representation behind technology as well. A very, very important goal, because today we cannot live without technology and it is touching every aspect of our lives. So that's the important mission we are on. And I'm Maggie. I'm the Managing Director for Anita B India, and supporting me today on the webinar is my colleague Padma, who's helping us set this up behind the scenes. And today we have two special people joining us for a very important conversation. The reason why we wanted to have this important conversation at this point is that we have been living with these uncertain circumstances and working from home with all our work, life, and everything collapsing together into this small physical space. And the effects of that, some are known, some are unknown, and some we don't want to know, right? And today really is the forum for us to think about and talk about things we probably don't want to know, don't want to hear about, would rather not have it in our lives. But yeah, like we would allude to, those do come up, and those are things that impact both our work space as well as our personal lives, since it becomes very, very important for us. So I'm going to quickly introduce our wonderful speakers today. We have Sujata Ameya. She's been working for more than 28 years in helping people really come into their full potential. She's a relationship and self-actualization coach. And she's also an author. She's written this beautiful book, When the Beloved Calls. I should probably share information on it in the chat at some point. It's a great book of poems and artwork based on her personal experience. So she comes from a clinical psychology background, but she's worked with a lot of career professionals, worked a lot in the relationship space. So that's where Sujata would be coming to us from today. And on the other side of the table, we have Shruti Bopaya. So Shruti is a former colleague and a dear friend. She has more than 15 years of experience in communication and branding in HR. She is the only Indian who's been recognized as the game changer in 2012 by the Workforce Management. And she's one of SHRM's top 40 HR influencers. So she's worked in major companies like Infosys. Currently, she works at Bridgeweave, heading their client engagement and communications. Now, Shruti will bring her wealth of corporate experience and how the workspace environment challenges and gives us space at the same time for all of us. And these two are critical components for us, right? The inner space, which is where our mind and thoughts lie, and the outer space where we go out as professionals and contribute to the world. And how do we keep them both in balance? How do we bring this together? So I just want to invite Shruti to talk about what she expects to do in today's conversation, and then also invite Sujata right after that.
Thank you, Maggie. And hello, everybody. It's, it's such a different topic that you would usually, be on webinars to talk about. So, from where I come from, it would be either around communication, HR, branding, marketing. So but then what really ties all this up is really our mental state, and with mental, I would just say actually well-being, our well-being. I wouldn't, in fact, just put it as our mental state. It's really, how do we feel on any given day? What do we bring to the table when we are at work, when we are at home? So I think today's conversation, while I'm also looking really forward to learn from, Sujata and many others, who are going to ask questions. I want to really talk about experiences and examples that I see on a daily basis and have seen with teams in organizations. What are those points where we think we break at times, or what are those points which we can sort of leverage and get beyond? So that's what I'm looking forward to, Maggie, in today's conversation.
Okay. I am looking forward to learning something about the inside of organizations, because I've not been inside one ever. I've always had my own private practice. And thank you, Maggie, for having me be a part of this lovely conversation. So I think what I would like to open up this space for all of us today is the very, very critical yet completely ignored aspect of the inner space. As both of you referenced, who you are deep inside at 3 a.m. in the morning when you're all by yourself, just facing yourself, is the person who walks to the kitchen, is the person who goes to work, is the person who enjoys with friends, is the person who gets into fights with the spouse. So who is that person, and what is the deal? What are you fighting with in that space? And are there other ways of understanding what is going on there? So the language of the inner space is something, unfortunately, no school, no curriculum, no teacher, no guru teaches you. We try to skip into spiritual, idealistic principles about how to be and how to be happy and how to be nice. But unless we go through the psychological labyrinth of this inner space and understand the language that it talks to us in, we are handicapped. We are actually handicapped. So I would really like to, explore this based on the different questions we have and whatever anyone wishes to understand.
Yeah, that's a great start. And then let's start with where we are, right? We are at a very unusual space. And I have personally had many conversations with my mentors in the yoga field, just trying to make sense of how to move forward. And then where exactly we are, because there is a personal space where things have completely changed, but the external space is also something which we are very new to. So from your experiences, given, Sujata, your work with people in the last few months, what are you seeing as our current scenario is?
Yeah. So just yesterday, I was saying this to someone, I think this Corona pandemic has done something incredible. So at one level, it's something out there that's kind of closing in on us, just in terms of the risk of, catching it and suffering it or even dying from it. So it's like an enemy that's coming at us from outside. But simultaneously, what it has also done is, because it has brought everybody into contained spaces, whether it's a lockdown or whether it's work from home or whether it is voluntary not going out and social distancing, whatever it is, we are all having to deal with everything that we have shoved under the carpet. So whether as an individual or as a couple or as a family or as an organization, the issues that you have not looked at, the issues that you have avoided, the issues that you hoped will just vanish because you have turned your eyes away from it, are now right in your face. It is forcing us to reckon with some of the internal stuff that we have not looked at. Now, as a result, I'm not proud to say this, but it's a fact. My practice has always been, on a wait list kind of a thing. Now it's just gone through the roof. The number of people reaching out for certain specific individual and couples issues is only symptomatic of what is happening also in the larger sphere. It is to do with a crisis that is forcing you to look at yourself and look at all the issues that you have refused to look at. That's how I would see it. Yeah.
That's not surprising, I should say. So that your list has now gone through the roof. I'm sure a lot of questions everyone is dealing with. Given the response we had and given what we saw with our volunteers as well. So Anita B, we run the largest technology conference for women in Asia. It's called the Grace Hopper Celebration. And it's largely organized and run by volunteers. We have a huge volunteer team of 200 from multiple organizations who come together and work as a team to deliver a lot of what we do. And within this volunteer team, we have been having conversations and organizing conversations just to access this and understand, what's going on. And I've heard incredible stories come out of those as well. One of our volunteers is a professor, and she mentioned that women students are not going home because the college offers them a safer space, emotionally, mentally, family support-wise, and all of that. So it's just, I think everyone is dealing with a different kind of a challenge. And Shruti, how are you seeing the workplaces handling this, or what is happening there in terms of the current scenario, either dealing with this and what's going on? What conversations are you hearing?
So, Maggie, like Sujata said, this pandemic has just come and hit everyone, but hit everyone. It's a level playing field in some sense. So people somewhere have somebody that they know are probably going through this. Of course, that still doesn't take away the the fear of not knowing, the uncertainty and all that. But still, at some level, we all know that we're sort of in this together with no sort of answer to it. When I knew that, we were going to talk today about, for example, what organizations are doing, it was very interesting. I spoke to different types of organizations to, just kind of get a sense of, did it really change for them? Because they had to obviously up engagement because everybody moved to online, right? Organizations were so used to having a pulse of their employees because they would come into work. That was simply a way to know what was happening in organizations. Now, everything changed and you had people not coming into work. And all of us saw a number of webinars that happened, different things that happened, and an overkill of that as well that happened to all of us. But I think I see three very distinct almost shifts, I would like to call it, that is happening right now in organizations. The first one, okay, whether it is really small organizations, startups, mid-sized organizations, or large organizations, they have gone and got their basics in place. I would like to put it. When I say basics, what is that? Earlier organizations, not all organizations thought it was important to have physical and mental health capabilities or ecosystems in their organizations. But today, thanks to the pandemic, I would say that everybody has got something in place for their employees. And when I say something, it could be tying up with an external organization in terms of an employee assistance program, a 24/7 helpline, or or doing workshops within the organizations. But I see everyone has taken that trouble to put something in place for the employees because they know that it's important today. That has happened. And I don't think that happened in the past. So people just went out and put things in place. Now that is at one level what I think people put in place. But at the second level, what I see has really happened. For organizations that had this, it was like a checklist. am I offering this? Do I have insurance partners who take care of, different kind of programs? Do I have, employee initiatives? Do I have family initiatives? Do I have anything to do with, mental health or physical health? So the checklist got ticked off this time. So one is they put basics in place. Two, the organizations that had it ensured they went back, looked at numbers, saw who was using it, went back, reiterated to employees, and they really just ensured that this came into the forefront. So the third shift and the biggest shift I'm seeing, and I think it's pretty amazing. Not all organizations are totally there, and I don't think there are partners that they can actually tie up with who also know the whole answer to this, but it's something to do with uh, can they look at well-being, which is mental and physical health, from a culture or strategy perspective. So it won't be about just business numbers anymore. It won't be about revenue numbers anymore. I think it will also soon, people are going to look at it as a number that comes, which is going to be sort of like a health well-being score. And I see organizations are looking at it more from that perspective. There are organizations thinking about how do I put this, and make it such an important item, whether it's for leaders, whether it's for managers, whether it's for employees. How can they access all this very easily? How can they sort of know what their score is? And the score is not just, take a survey randomly, I get one score, then I have some tips with it. But how does that all lead back to business revenue, less absenteeism, better productivity, and employees just saying, what, I'm happy. It's not that I'm satisfied, I'm happy. Long way to go, but I definitely see that shift happening. So I think in some sense it's forced us to do to think really about what the employee not wants but should have. I think it is that now from organizations.
So if that is the scenario, and we see that, what I hear and what I see is there are still so many things which are very difficult to speak about, not easily shareable. There's a lot of stigma. Sujata, while you're saying that a lot of people are reaching out to you, I'm pretty sure twice that amount is not reaching out to you. Would you agree? And why is that? And
oh yes. So there are few parts to this answer. So you're absolutely right. It's not just twice. Perhaps, if 100 people will benefit from help of this nature, perhaps only 10 reach out, 5 actually show up, and 2 walk the path. That's the statistics. So it's not that. Is it so? It is, of course, about the what you call stigma. Now, even in stigma, there are 2 different categories here. There is one thing which we all understand pretty well in general as mental illness, which is to do with fairly extreme versions of emotionality, behavior, dysfunction, etc. But then that is thankfully a small percentage of the overall population. My work actually involves the larger population, where none of this is anything bizarre, none of it is anything extreme. It is everyday issues, everyday emotionality, everyday decision making, everyday dealing with each other, dealing with yourself, these things. Now, therefore, because it's not visible enough, because the weightage is not strong enough, it is not seen as something that can benefit from being discussed with a professional, number one. Number two, there is a self-imposed or a socially imposed expectation and pressure that you should be able to manage your space. You should be able to manage your mind. If you can't have yourself, your mind, and your emotions in control, you are somehow weak or deficient or lacking in something. And it is, only for the weak-hearted or the weak-minded that counseling and therapy is required. Now that, I think, is the biggest bummer, because as I was saying when we opened today, the way of understanding yourself and emotions and this whole inner world that we have, no one teaches you. There are 2 models we have. Okay, one is the, what you call, stigma. Now, even in stigma, there are, there are 2 different categories here. There is one thing which we all understand pretty well in general as mental illness, which is to do with fairly extreme versions of emotionality, behavior, dysfunction, etc. But then that is thankfully a small percentage of the overall population. unfortunately exceptionless model of our own families, our own parents, our own cousins, extended family, relatives, the world, the entire world. Every family has some kind of dysfunction or the other. The non-dysfunctional, very functional family exists in the psychiatry textbooks, right? So we have this model on one side, and then we have this extraordinarily idealistic model of the Hollywood and the Bollywood, where it is all happily ever after. We don't know what is the ever after, because no one actually continues the movie after they get married, right? So we have these two models to learn from, how to manage our own inner space. There is no course, there is no teacher, there's nothing to actually teach you that. So this is, I think, really, really unfortunate, because I don't know, I have no models to learn from, that I'm expected to manage it and manage it well. Now to this, now you bring the women's angle, and we have a massive soup. So women are now trying to balance, not now, forever, they've been trying to balance this external professional persona, which is extraordinary, adult, sophisticated, intelligent, traveled, exposed, has everything under the belt, very composed, very good. And there is this chaotic inner child, which is jumping around, pulling strings, and needing comfort and understanding. We do not have the tools. So if we open up the space, both in our social spaces and in our workspaces, to bring a sense of normalcy to the idea of seeking help, to understand our own inner space, I think that would single-handedly change a lot of the way we live and the way we connect with each other. Because in the absence of that, what is happening is we carry our personas around. We don't carry our authentic self around. So for example, on a day I'm feeling really low, if I'm at work, it's very unlikely I will ever speak about it. I will put on my persona of the functional adult, conduct my business, and go back home feeling utterly alone. And then we talk about, why do we feel so lonely? Well, here it is. Loneliness is not to do with not having companionship. Loneliness has to do with not having the space to be fully true and authentic about yourself. So it's like a very confusing situation. And I really hope that thanks to this pandemic, workplaces are waking up to it, and mutual psychological and spiritual support becomes a norm rather than an exception. That is really my vision.
Chitra, that's a great point you brought about loneliness. But before we go there, I just want to ask Shruti this. There's a lot of, Chitra mentioned about seeking help, right? And in a workplace, it is so competitive. We all want to look strong and look like the person who can deliver. Who wants to seek help, right? Who wants to look like vulnerable or anything less than 120% competent? What is your reaction to that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to? And that's where and I know I love what Sujata said, because, you know, when you're not authentic, it will show. It will show. Of course, you spoke about it in terms of loneliness, and, you know, it could be different things that men and women bring to the, you know, workplace. And, you know, we sometimes kind of generalize that, you know, we're possibly the only ones, you know, who probably, you know, go through things more, or are probably in places which are more difficult. But in my many years of what I've seen in teams that I've had, I mean, I think it's equal, and if not more, because obviously there are more men in the workspace. So, you know, they go through, you know, the low phases equally, if not more. And but coming back to your question, yeah, so everyone, and when I say everyone wants to look strong, you know, so it's not, I mean, there is no gender at play here. but that's where that breaking point happens, because there is only up to that point that you will be able to do it. You are able to come into a team, you are able to act, like you want to do this project, you want to be in teams, you want to go on that I mean, you want to make it all look like everything is okay. But when everything is not okay, there are signs, and signs your teammates are seeing, your manager is definitely watching, because these signs show, and they show in different ways. They may probably show in just the quality of output. And and many times what happens is, you are a sort of medium to high performer, and you're giving it your best, you're still working those hours, you are still the only one probably getting that kind of output out, you think. But there are things that make you stand out which are not making you stand out anymore. So these are sort of triggers which people who are watching you, that's one. Two is, you 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 are somebody who's jovial, and you're full of fun, and there are moments you're withdrawn, you're silent, and you think, so what, there could be a day when somebody who's jovial and sort of the life of the party can go silent. Or I'm even talking about, just look at people who don't make a big deal about themselves, are usually your quiet ones. They are showing some other signs completely. And Sujata, you should talk about some of those signs, the obvious ones. But when I look at it from a workplace, other than the fact that the productivity gets hit, there is absenteeism, or there are just reasons about why you can do something, why you think this is impossible, how are you even giving me this task, when you were somebody who could have thought about a solution from anywhere and got it done. I just think it all comes together in some way where you believe something is not possible. And these are very small signs which you tend to kind of you tend to see and pick up. So to answer your question, Maggie, reach out. I would say that have that conversation either with a peer in the team, have a conversation with either your manager. It could be tough, but your organizations have set up these extended ecosystems for you to, platforms for you to reach out. So it would be great if you just picked up and made that call. It could seem not personal, it could seem like but sometimes we ask for anonymity, but then we don't want it. I mean, I just feel that jump in, have that first conversation. I know it's very easy to say, but these platforms are sort of there so that you need to reach out. You need to use some of this to know whether the person on the other side can actually, could just be a tip they give you, which could just be better and nudge you a little more to seek that mental health professional or counselor. So I would say there are signs, and people are people can pick it up. You would pick it up. You as an individual would pick it up if somebody else on your team, was going through some of these things. So I would say, but organizations here again, Maggie, can do one or two things, if this became a part of sort of culture, then what would happen is you would ensure that you're going to start enabling your managers on emotional intelligence. You're going to start, enabling your teams. How do you identify somebody is going through something, within your team? How do you not make it obvious, but, sort of reach out to that person so that they can probably open up? So I think organizations definitely have a role to play here. You as an individual who probably are somebody who can talk or who can get somebody else to talk to you and just listen. I think, and just be, just speak it out. I think that is what I would say works. I've seen it work, whether it was myself or whether it was team members or whether it was these high performers or whether it was people going through a lot. It helps. Yeah.
So I'd like to just add on to what Shruti has shared so beautifully. One is the issue of the culture itself, whether the senior leadership, has invested in being transparent, authentic, connected, and making it okay to have the human aspect of you come to work along with you and not have it stay home. and just only the performer shows up here, and the day the performer doesn't perform, then you take leave and go off somewhere. If as long as that is not the culture, I think it's easier down the ladder as well for people to reach out. So that is one part. There's also something else that might be complicating this situation, which is something I hear a lot when people finally do show up and come for counseling sessions. So there is this idea that what is a therapist going to do? They, after all, saying, how help me? I myself should find a solution to my own problem. I don't think I want to talk to somebody unknown. So that, like he said, that's one extreme. The other is, I can't talk to my friends. At the same time, I know what the therapist is going to tell me, but I'm not ready to do it. So now you're like digging in further into the same quicksand. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to clarify something very critical here. Therapists, let me caveat that by saying well-trained, ethically practicing, integrated therapists actually will not be giving you any advice or ideas about what you should do with your problem. If somebody is trying to do that, run away. Do not engage in that kind of a therapeutic dialogue at all. Therapists are supposed to be a mirror to whatever you're saying and whatever you're going through, so that you see the whole picture without distortion, within of your own immediate emotional panic, so that you reconnect the dots, find new patterns, let go of the old patterns, and feel empowered in being able to go forward with your own resolution to whatever the issue is. And sometimes all it takes is one session. And sometimes it may take 10 sessions, depending on what the issue is, how long it's been there, and what you're trying to do with it, right? But that I doubt if close friends can help, and especially colleagues can help, for this reason, not that they're not biased, not that they're not intelligent, not that they don't have lived experience, but for the simple reason that everybody's insights too. The perspective that a outsider can bring sometimes can be very different and useful. So for those people who have this idea of therapists being some weirdos sitting on a top of a lighthouse giving some esoteric advice, it's not so. A good therapist will not only offer you empathy, understanding, and holding, but they will also offer you challenge, confrontation, and kick-ass, both. They're supposed to do both for you. Yeah. So just wanted to say.
Maybe you should also add that therapists don't give canned solutions, right? That was one of the questions we had gotten in the form, that somebody says, I know what the therapist will say. So it's not, how would you tackle that? That's probably an opinion a lot of people do have. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's what I was trying to address as well, that the idea of canned solution is a killer actually for any growth to be possible, you know. So I have reach outs from people saying, my friend has this problem, can you tell her what she should do? So first of all, you can't talk about your friend's problem because she's given one piece of it. The friend needs to take initiative and come and discuss. And also, for the exact same concern, two different people will end up finding two completely different solutions. So it is not that our life challenges can be resolved by tips from so-called experts. No one is an expert in your life except you. What you need is some clarity and some hand-holding and some, space to figure out what you want to do. And a skilled therapist actually supposed to do that. So in fact, in my class, I always say, the highest skill of a therapist is to skillfully do nothing. Skillfully do nothing, literally. Be there as a mirror. Let them see themselves in all their glory and all their, stupidity, which we are always both as human beings, and then figure it out. And it's always a work in progress. So I'm very worried about things like 5 tips to make your relationship work, 7 tips to influence your boss, 6 tips to overcome your colleague. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So yeah.
So just want to steer this conversation a little bit towards loneliness. This is something that came up in the form we had given. Someone had written saying they're new to the city and they're living alone, and with this lockdown, it is even more difficult. And in the Q&A box also, we see a question that talks about how to handle the lack of face-to-face interactions. There is no smile, no handshake. All communications is electronic. You know, the one thing all of us were dealing with the increasing amount of all the social media is that loneliness. We're all so busy working that the human connection was already going down the drain to some extent. And now I think the pandemic has only enhanced it. So, whichever whoever wants to jump into it first, Sujata and Shruti, what is your take on that? Sujata, you explained loneliness beautifully, but in a very, very practical terms, if you would like to give a take on that, what would it be?
Sure. Now, I was tempted to say when you said, as it is, it was going down the drain, the pandemic has flushed it out completely. There's no human touch at all in one way. But then, we are all cooped up also in the same place as family members as well. So for some people, there's too much of it. There's too much people are in their faces and spaces. And for some people, they are stuck being completely alone. Like you were mentioning a couple friend where they're separated in 2 different cities because of the lockdown and inability to travel, etc. But yes, coming to the broad, thing of loneliness, my work is full of people who are married, who have children, who have in-laws, extended family, a working professional network and social network as well, feeling miserably lonely. That is the presenting complaint of a lot of people that I work with. Yeah. So first of all, let's get that thing out of our head that loneliness is directly proportional to the number of people you have or the number of hands you can shake or the number of hugs you will get. It is not like that. That is not what it is. Loneliness, once again, let me repeat, has to do with not giving yourself visibility or not feeling safe enough to reveal yourself even to yourself, never mind others. And it's in a strange way, the more I'm able to see myself and give myself visibility, the more comfortable I am in revealing myself to another person as well. And if that person is missing, if such an opportunity is missing, to be able to contain my own self as well. So it's like the bottom line skill here is, can I give myself the space to be fully visible to myself? Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Yeah, this is the same as, can I be intimate with myself? Meaning, do I, give myself the time, the priority, and the attention to really get to know who I am based on the different things that are going on in my life? So let's say I speak to someone, they make me feel a certain way. If it's positive, I don't even register it. But if it's negative, I shove it under the carpet. Versus, can I actually spend some time before going to bed or early morning after I meditate to really understand, what did that do to me? What does that reveal to me about myself? What happened there? Can I learn from it? Can I go back and tell them something about what they have left me feeling? Can there be, so this kind of a self-exploratory approach where you try to discover more and more of who you are, not only through social interactions, but also through different practices like breathing and pranayama, yoga, meditation, artwork, pottery, gardening, cooking, vegetable chopping. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the activity is, but something that leaves you, that gives you the opportunity to spend time with yourself. So I use the phrase, can you fix a date with yourself every week without fail? Can you go on a date with yourself? That's important. So as you do that, you're less likely to feel lonely, very less likely to feel lonely. Of course, there are some basic human needs. So yeah, we would love to be hugged and looked at and patted upon the back and taken out for coffee, or go with a friend to a movie. Yes, those would be awesome. We are all missing them. Last 4 months, none of us has done that. That's true. But over and beyond that, can at my own company, then loneliness is not something that will bother you. Then you will be available fully to be in company with someone else as well. So that would be my take on how to work with loneliness.
Shruti, do you want to add?
Yeah, actually, yeah, because as Sujata was speaking, so Sujata, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially, and you almost corrected the way probably some of us think about loneliness as well. Loneliness is a feeling, it is not a fact, right? So it's I mean, if I was to just articulate it in a way, so having an alternative pursuit that one can look at. I mean, I'm just thinking about what is sort of a practical way to. I mean, it's amazing what you said, and you're right. So when I'm on that date with myself, do I pick up something that I can learn? Do I pick up something that I've not spent time doing? Do I something for me, for myself? And this could be people who are staying alone, and like Maggie, this started with, I think Sandhya or someone on the chat also has spoken about the fact that now that we're all in online, and there are no social, we can't hang out with someone at office and say, God, I'm having such a terrible day, chalo coffee chalte. I mean, there is no let's go for coffee. I mean, I miss that. Like, I totally miss that. So what do you do? So I mean, so some of the things that I've been looking at, I mean, or telling my teams to do, or as a organization we're trying to do, is we're almost setting, telling people, do a coffee with Shruti. You set up a time, get your coffee, don't discuss work, but just have a coffee. Just do some things which probably, of course, these come as, like you said, tips, and what you were talking about is still go deeper, figure out what is it that you want to do. But I think social connection, some people kind of almost connect it to, because I don't have social connection, hence I'm feeling lonely, because I'm now not being able to go to work. So I think you're talking about that, making that distinction. Is that right, Dr. Sujata?
Yes, I would 100% agree with you. So one component of handling loneliness would be social connection. And that's what you were describing. Like even a small act like let's both do a coffee Zoom call, right? Or let's do a Zoom connection over a small meal. So those are good ways to do as well. But I'm also talking about in the absence of that availability of that person. Sometimes there is a certain person with whom you want to do the Zoom call and they're not available. Or the people who are willing to do Zoom calls with you don't really do it for you. Let's accept it. Not everybody meets your needs in the way you want them met, right? I'm talking about those situations. So in that case, when I say, can you go on a date with yourself? So yes, one of the things could be, can I learn something new, a new skill, a new idea, a new pursuit or whatever. But again, the focus goes into more of action and doing. Whereas, as you rightly said, loneliness is a feeling. It has to do with the being, with your soul, with your inner sense of yourself. So what it demands is actually simple attention, just really being quiet with how you're feeling, including the feeling of being alone. So when I pay attention to my loneliness, I'm no longer alone. It's that paradox. Yeah. As I spend time with my loneliness, I'm no longer alone. That is the takeaway I would like people to have, because it's a deep skill, but it's actually simple if you begin to do it.
Right. So we have a lot of questions, I think. we can spend the next few minutes on this. And this is one theme that has come across many questions. I'm combining a few questions here. Is about, one is about, okay, I think I can combine the both here. How do we help someone when there is another person in the life, be it a friend or a spouse, who's either causing distress to me, or I perceive them as having or needing help? So this, a lot of people have asked this. How to tackle that? How do we get them help? How do we open them up to help? And I'm questioning, is it even a possibility? So,
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a Pandora's box, but
Yeah.
let me keep it brief. So broadly, we have to understand two things. One is the whole spectrum of what we call psychiatric disorders, which are fairly clear to see. I mean, if not you, since you're very close to the person, there are the rest of the family or relatives or community, someone or the other will keep saying, no, something is the matter, you should take him for a consultation or take her for a consultation. So those are easier to identify, and hopefully if the person is willing, you can then proceed to take them for a consultation. And often it requires a medication, sometimes a combination of medication and counseling. So that goes off on a very different track. But thankfully, again, as I said at the beginning, that's a minority. The majority is where I think you need to change so that I feel better. I think you need to do something different so that I'm more comfortable. Yeah. Majority of our issues are around that. And I was just speaking to someone this morning during a session. I said, it's like you take your precious resource of your life force, your prana, and put it in a space which is not in your control, because it's the other person. You can't control that space at all. And the only result you have assured is constant depletion, self-depletion. You will not achieve any result. They're not going to listen to you. In fact, you will provoke more defiance, more rebellion, more hostility, more detachment. They will not do that at all. But then we keep thinking that because I love the person, I have a right to ask them to change. And because I am asking them to change, they will proceed to change. And because they have proceeded to change, the change will be permanent. All the three are big delusions. The only person you can work with really is yourself. You can start there and then see what happens. Things do change. Once you change, everything around you also changes. Cliched as this sounds, this is the only way. This is the only way.
So, yeah. And I often think about the only thing under control is one's own self, right? So like you said, it is a Pandora's box to even try to change anything like that. And there are a couple of things that have come from the organization end also. Shruti, there was one from, I'm just trying to get to it here.
I saw one
Meera
had asked. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to take that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find her question again. So
I have it here. Let me read it.
I saw it. Just read it.
Corporates, when working in what is generally ignored in corporates, what are the signs to look out for is what she's really asking, particularly when we are working in a virtual environment and if one of the teammates is not feeling or really just tackling a lot of stress and not talking about it. What are the signs?
Actually, Meera, I really like what you are suggesting there. You know, it is unprecedented. I don't think we can actually mandate. I don't think organizations can mandate telling people now, you know, it's better you speak it out, you talk about it, do counseling. But just like you said, I think it is a time we have to think out of the box. It's not going to be a solution because nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows how to run a 100% online organization, right, where employees are not there. So I think things are going to come to us over a period of time. But having said that, couple of things, you know, very quickly to watch out for in online spaces is, I think it's again to do with that deadlines, are people meeting those basic deadlines? Are they asking the questions? Are they, how is the output when, when work is done and comes to you? And if people are just quiet over a call, not coming into, team meetings, don't have, just, not participative at all. I think these are signs to definitely, watch out for, because I feel it's the same signs. You're going to bring that back, right? I mean, in some sense, it's the same person who's not going to be engaging enough, not excited enough, never going to do that coffee with you. If it's not work related, they're not interested in having a conversation with you. So how do you break through that? How do you reach out to some of these people? So I think it's going to be tough, but like you said, I think organizations now have to start thinking about some very different ways to ensure that people's well-being, improves. And like I started in the beginning of my conversation, things that will tell the organization what that person is feeling right now. I mean, how closely can we align to what people are feeling, and yet not kill privacy and not kill so many other aspects that will come in, because when you think about an organization perspective. But I think it's for all of us to answer this question. Nobody has an answer. Unprecedented times. So,
and just going on with that, there is one more question from Savita Shruti. Do you have any examples that the organizations are doing in the space? Any one or two that you can think of, share?
Yeah, sure. So one company that I actually spoke to was doing something very interesting because of it being the pandemic time. When they launched something from a mental health perspective or this physical health perspective, they did a tie-up with, I think, Cult Fit or something. They also allowed 3 more members of their family to use it, use whatever they were giving the employee for 3 family members, because they know that, people are, in it together online, right? Your own family members are possibly in your space and, need the counseling sessions, need these workshops, need these sessions, whether it's exercise or mental health sessions. They've actually opened it out to family members. So they can actually just sign in, any 3 people get. So that's something I've seen somebody do this, post-pandemic. The second thing, which I was talking about, where I was talking about companies thinking about culture and strategy, I actually know a very large IT company who's thinking about doing this well-being score and connecting it to culture and strategy, and actually thinking that this is something they'll start reporting, when their results and things happen, because it's that important, and they're trying to tie it back to employee absenteeism, and basically just look at resource management and just look at a whole lot of things depending on how it's going to, shape. But it's very, very, in the nascent stage, Maggie, if I was to put it. But like I said, I'm seeing some people are really thinking out of the box. So I think now, yeah, I definitely see that. Yeah. And I think they want employees to give in their suggestions. They want employees to think about ideas. They're asking employees to think about apps they can build, get into teams together, hack their way together. Earlier hackathons used to be together. Now they're figuring out how they can do it outside of that. So I think organizations are looking at, a lot of different ways to do this.
Great. I think we'll take about 3 more questions. We probably will run over the hour by 10, maximum 15 minutes. But there are 2 questions here which are very related. And there was one in the form as well, which we had put out. The first says, what can we do except the much touted yoga and meditation to manage unreasonable anxiety and anger? And a related question, as a developer, my job involves a lot of trial and error, but when I approach a daunting problem, the anxiety is almost disabling. And in the form, we had someone ask about, what exactly do I do when my thoughts go out of control at 3 a.m.? Right? So I think anxiety is something all of us feel, and I'm really happy people are recognizing that as anxiety and asking about it, not just trying to brave it all up. So what would you suggest? And I like the much touted yoga and meditation. It doesn't work for all. So I think we've kept it there while it can be very simple. But yeah, go for it.
Yes. As you know, you are talking one for whom animation doesn't work. It doesn't, which is why a teacher has a path for every character. Everybody can find their own path, not yoga and meditation. So this is a favorite question. How do I manage my anger and anxiety? So first thing I want to say is the mind follows the same principles that the body follows. Okay. So when you are, when we look at body processes, we don't question them, we don't judge them. Like if anyone needs to pee at some point, they'll just excuse themselves and go and pee. If someone is sweating, they acknowledge that they're sweating, they may turn on the fan or they may wipe themselves or do something. It is not judged. Whereas emotions somehow are not acceptable, especially the ones we as negative or difficult. So then begins this very unhealthy and no more than unhealthy, ignorant and pointless chase of controlling them. Like, how do I control my anger? How do I control my anxiety? You can be as successful in controlling and managing your anger and anxiety as you are in holding back your need to use the bathroom or the sweating of your body. So let's please get that clear first. Let's not approach the idea of emotion management with the idea of control. So now what's possible? What's possible is this. If just as you understand sweating and needing to go to the loo are bodily processes that are giving a message to you that something is being flushed out of the body, which is not required. The body is cleansing itself. Similarly, if you take that approach to understanding the mind, then emotions actually are messengers from your inner world, from your psyche, telling you that something is off. So they're like watchmen, they're like signals, they're like alarm bells saying something is off, find out what it is. There is a threat to the integrity of your system. That is what an emotion usually tells you, a negative emotion, right? Positive emotions, on the other hand, tell you that all is well. You can be relaxed. You don't have to have your guards up. It is all safe and enjoy the ride, right? Like you feel happy, you feel joyful, you feel excited, you feel enthusiastic. These are all good emotions. The psyche is telling you all is okay. But when you have the difficult emotions, the psyche is telling you something is off. So for example, think about the times you have been really angry. I'm not talking about annoyance, frustration, or just getting a little pissed off, not like that, right? Real anger, if you go back to those times, it has to do with the inner experience of being disrespected or being pushed or being dominated or your boundary being invaded, your space being intruded upon. Those are the times when you experience the emotion of anger. So if your anger is coming, it's an invitation to pause and look at what is going on. What is going on right now? Sometimes it is not possible to address the aggression right there. You cannot then and there sometimes tell the person, hey, back off, don't do this to me. It's not possible. It may be your boss, it may be your mother-in-law, it could be, whatever. But it is important that you register that that has happened so that you can then, in your alone time, in your date with yourself, you can look at it and try to understand what is it that you did or what is it that you failed to do that could have enabled a different outcome, experience, and take the learning forward from that to manage it the next time. Same thing about anxiety. What is anxiety? It is basically telling you that more than paying attention to what you need to do, you're paying attention to the expected and hoped for outcome. So your focus has gone from to outcome. The more attached and more focused you become on the outcome, the higher the anxiety. The more engrossed and attentive you are in the process of what you're doing, lesser the anxiety. Now, does it mean that you don't have to bother about the outcome? No, of course. You are bothering about the outcome by focusing on the process, not by obsessing about the outcome, by focusing on the process. So emotions are messages that continue to help you self-correct and self-regulate. So if you can befriend them, you can go a long way. As opposed to trying to control them, then you will reach nowhere. They will chase you, you will chase them, and it'll be one wild goose chase. Nothing will be achieved. Yeah, so I hope that is helpful.
Do you want to add anything to it, Shruti? Because I have a very apt one
Actually, I
coming
don't
to
want
you.
to, add, but I think some, question I may have, or I've, like you said, I've heard friends ask me, or maybe let's just say I have. Yeah, I have. Is so how do you deal with, so you're on this process, you're dealing with how to learn your emotions, how to have a date with yourself and all that. But then there is society, and then there is social stigma to do with so many different things in our lives, right? So how do you, is that what, like when you explained what a therapist would do, what a counselor will do, is that where they come in to help you understand these things? Because I loved everything you said, and I'm sure all of us are making notes. We definitely, we're going to try all this. But then there is the real world, right? Of when you have to deal with people, you have to go out there, your family, your friends, so how do you deal with that, Sujata?
That I'm so glad you're asking this question, Shruti. So let me clarify the fact that what I shared is the principle, and what you lack is the practice. So there's a huge gap. So when you say, oh, this is all great, but what about the real world? Well, of course, the real world. The point of all this is for the real world. But it is almost like just because you've heard me differentiate these things, what is loneliness, what is anger, what is anxiety, it doesn't mean you'll be able to go and start implementing it. There's a learning curve. There's a learning curve, which hopefully, yes, therapists can teach you, videos can teach you, people can teach you, you yourself can teach yourself. Spiritual pursuits can teach you, songs can teach you, music can teach you. That's okay, the different sources of learning. But it is a new skill which we don't have. All I'm flagging off today is the misconceptions we carry about the inner space and the emotionality of human beings. And can we begin to change the way we relate to these issues? If that takeaway happens from today's call, I think it will be great. That can we understand ourselves in a different way? Can we take away a different framework and different lens to understand our own experience? And then comes the process of how do I learn the different ways to actually now implement it in the real world? Yeah. Otherwise, this is just theory. So just because it is explained, it doesn't mean you can now practice. No, there's a big gap. So we need to learn. I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to tackle something important, and this is something that has come up with many of my conversations with, the women we work with as part of our work, that the management has unrealistic expectations from a work point of view. Managers believe if you're not overtaxed, then they're going to be chatting and piling our time away. During normal hours, I used to get out of office and leave work at 6. Now I'm stuck with laptop the entire day, even weekends. I really think it's about how to meet the expectations and how to voice when it is going over and how to draw your own boundaries. But Shruti, what would you say to someone who has this problem? And this has come up in many areas I've seen.
Maggie, so before I answer, and sorry about the sound at the back. There's suddenly a loudspeaker started, but before I get to your the exact answer, I got this forward which actually spoke about all of mankind is asking 3 questions at the moment. Sujata, you should listen to this. So there are 3 questions. 1, when is the pandemic going to end? 2, am I audible now? And 3, can you see my screen? so 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 while we've spoken about all these big things, and Maggie, that's exactly what you're saying, because everyone is only asking these 3 questions finally and all through the day. But to answer your question, Maggie, I think you have to, I think we all know this, we have to draw the line, we have to speak to our manager, we have to do this. And really, I want to tell you that I've seen my own team do that. There are people who you give them something, they're obviously going to turn it around, and you know who those people are. And obviously you need to ensure that it doesn't work like that, that you end up giving something to people who are going to turn it around as fast. But the ones who spoke to you and said, I'd like to maintain some timelines and I'd like to do it like this. So I think as managers also, and again, here's the culture part, here is where the organizations come in. We have to start understanding, if the work is delivered and, you know, you are setting some real timelines, you know, which make sense, then it shouldn't matter to you whether they were logged in and sent it to you, you know, at what point in the day or night, because we need to allow them to, you know, just finish that work and give it to you. So I think, but then again, you know, global companies, there are calls that happen at, you know, odd hours. Maggie, you know, we've been in some of those absolutely night and day and no differentiation and different geo calls. Now that is, I think that's really, we have to ask ourselves, you know, how important is this? How much can I push it with my manager? How much can I push it with the organization? But make that attempt. What I feel is what people end up doing is they assume, no, my manager, no chance, will not listen. No, why should I even bring it up? You know, it's better I don't talk about it, because the culture of my team is like that. It is about somebody who stays, you know, logged in for so long, you know, sends it out only at 10 p.m. at the night. And, you know, my manager likes this. Now, until you have the conversation, so my take is just have the conversation. You will be surprised. You know, I just think it's that you don't know that till you have the conversation. So try it, and you know, guys, too bad if it doesn't work after that. Again, it's a call you have to take. You know, is this the place for you? Is this, I mean, you'll have to, you know, figure it out and deliver and try again. But obviously there are pros and cons to it, but try, have the conversation. Maggie, that's all I can say, because there is no other way to this.
There is no other way. Yeah, I totally agree with you. My dad always used to say, go ask, at the maximum you will get a no, and you're not worse off than you are. But yeah, that is something we have to do. And like you're saying, I think it's also good for the management in quotes and basically the organization to develop the culture to understand. One is to understand that the current situation is quite stressful for every person who's working. We may have a family member who's sick. We may be constrained by the interstate travel restrictions. The entire environment is stressful. I think all of us should definitely allow some room in our conversations for that. And personally draw the boundaries. Keep some time when the laptop is closed or where we will not look at work, and then be very open about it. These are the times I need for my personal work, and this is the time I'll be available for work. Having that open conversation also helps. Of course, this is a topic we can go on and on. There are still so many open questions, and which require its own session. Some of the questions require their own session, and we anticipated this. I think one last question. This again combines a couple of things. A couple of people have asked a similar question. Yes, we open the mouth, we talk about, let's say, I'm depressed, I'm lonely, or I'm just feeling very stressed, and it's just the thought of COVID-19 is making me very panicked. These are all very, very valid emotions. Let me put that out. So there is a question on how people judge you. They think you're being defensive. They think you are being incompetent or whatever. And I think I want to see if we can bring two perspectives. One is, how do we tackle it externally, and how do we tackle it internally? Because there is a way in which we express us, from the place from where we express ourselves also, I think matters. So maybe Sujata, if you could talk about that space, and then we also talk about how to manage the external space, that might help people to go about this.
So I think in line with the theme of our conversation today, one of the reasons why this is such a pain point, it has become a pain point, is when someone is really expressing a deep fear, it gets minimized or dismissed as, oh no, come on, it's okay, you're overreacting, etc., etc. So it goes in that direction. Or if you're just being okay, you're going through your day and you're living your life and you're managing with the bare, precautions, etc., then somebody comes and maximizes it for you. And it's like, oh, but you should do this, you should stalk that way, and you should have this doctor, that phone number, this, that. So I think this is a very interesting situation where each one will have their idea of what's the best way to respond. And I think our greatest call right now, our greatest challenge right now, is to be able to be very in tune with who you are, where you are, and how you are relating to the fear, and be stable and steady with that, and allow people to have their own opinion, their own, and not get influenced or swayed by it. Now, in this, what it also means is there will be few days in the week where you will wake up feeling very chivalrous, very gallant, very courageous, and feel like Karuna will not touch me, right? Then there will be some other days in the week where you will not want to come out of the blanket also because you're petrified. What if? What if? So one suggestion I always give to clients who talk about fear, and this is another opportunity of fear only, right? We usually say, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Can we continue the sentence? I'm afraid of, and fill in the blanks. The blanks can be filled in unlimited. Write down everything that you're afraid of vis-a-vis this corona. Instead of simply saying, I'm scared, I shouldn't be scared, I shouldn't be scared, and divert your mind to Facebook and Instagram and friends and bug people or get worked up or drink too much coffee or go smoke. Instead of doing all that, can you acknowledge your fear? Can you take your fear on a date? Literally, can you hang out with your fear? Can you hang out with your fear and ask it, okay, what is it? What are you trying to tell me? How are you trying to protect me? Tell me, what are you afraid of? So different people, depending on their age and the stage of life, will have different things that they are afraid of. So people in their 50s, men perhaps, who believe that the entire family is dependent on them, will have issues of, the property, the settlement, the will, the this, the that, the keys and the codes and the passwords and those kind of things. Women may, in the same age, may have things of what will I do with my jewelry, which daughter gets what daughter-in-law should get this. I don't know. People have different issues, right? Youngsters will have some other issues. The very young may have like, finally, should I tell this person I love them or should I not tell them? Should I tell them in August or should I tell them? So can you get to the bottom of what are you afraid of and deal with it? Deal with it. Rather than just going around in circles saying, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Oh, I shouldn't be afraid, I shouldn't be afraid. I'm afraid, I shouldn't be afraid. I'm afraid, I shouldn't be afraid. So let's not get caught in that loop. Let us look at the list. Let us write down, complete the sentence. If I get COVID, I am afraid of. Make the list and tick it off one by one. You'll be delighted that 99 of that list of 100 you will resolve. It is humanly doable. That one thing, surrender. Uno bhi baitha hai na uppar, usko bhi thoda kaam do. Why are you taking on everything on your own head? Yeah, that's what I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
So firstly, I think Sujata has made all these things we're scared of very cool. Now go on a date with your fear, go on a date with this one, go on a date with anxiety, write down a list. Big date schedule I have now to fix. Cool. Anyway, so Sujata, I'm just going to add to, when you say let's write down all those points, I'm just going to come straight into that and say what somebody can do, because I think one of the things everybody is thinking about when this COVID has happened is just job security, right? Will I have my job or not? Will my organization stay or not? Now you could be with really large organizations, you could be with really small, but I think I talk to a lot of people, sort of junior to mid to senior levels in the media and communications industry, and that is one industry that is, really undergoing turmoil at the moment. And this is really what they're scared about this. So I think two things, what you should do, okay, once you make that list, and Sujata said, make your list. After that list, you have to do something about that list, right? So let's look at it. So if it's job security, do you know that if something was to happen, which are your next 2-3 companies that you probably would like to work in? What are the 3 kind of roles that you'd move to? What are the skills you've really got? So then did you go learn an additional skill? Did you go and, I'm just saying that make your list. You may get to it, you may not. Don't put pressure on yourself, but you need to just know whether you're doing something about that. Are you on, and I'm going to be very corporate and corporate-ish about this, but what are you doing on LinkedIn? Do you post things? Do you, do people know about you? Because you have to build your own brand, right? If you're going to lose that job and you want people to check you out in a professional sense, then you need to be out there and, people need to know who you are. So what are you doing in all these? Fears is one thing, but you also need to go and do something about those fears. And interestingly, they don't seem like a fear. And then you've already start doing all these things and setting up, who you are and fixing yourself, or, just becoming better from wherever you were, or, you know, just enjoying yourself. I think that's really what, you know, when Sujata says make that list, you do your next bit to that, is what I would answer to this, Maggie.
I love finishing meetings with action items, and we have a lot of action items.
And they're all dates. Have you ever thought of
Right.
that? Who would have left with like action items with going on a date?
Yeah, I know this is really, really lovely. I always enjoy talking to both of you, and this just gave us a platform to talk about things I think we love to talk about. So thank you so much for your time. And the recording will be available in a few weeks. We will edit it and get it out to everyone to watch. And there are some questions we could not get to because of time. It's already past 5:15. So we will, get back to you on those as quickly as we can. And some of you had asked about the contact information of Shruti and Sujata. Write to us. I've given the email ID in the chat box, and we'll be happy to connect you with the context. So happy to do that. Any closing words, Sujata, Shruti?
No, I just want to say thank you, Maggie. It was a delight to be here, to be talking with both of you and Padma and all the participants. Thank you, everybody, for the lovely questions. And I'm just very grateful. Thank you so much.
Just go to copy her. Very grateful. Thank you so much, Maggie. It was really nice. And a great question. Seriously, I think everybody seemed extremely, involved and absorbed. And yeah, set the date.
Right. Set the date. That's what we ended. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.